Hello, friends and comrades, and welcome back to the Left Chapters Audio Dispatch. I'm Michael Axer, and today is Thursday, April 30th, the day before International Workers' Day. Happy May Day to everybody. It's interesting on the eve of May Day to look. The Wall Street Journal, the headlines read, "Stocks drop, but hold on to big April gains," with the subheadline saying that the Dow Industrials finish April up 11%, their largest one-month percentage gain since 1987. I think under the circumstances, this is pretty astounding. We have a situation where workers have probably had one of their worst months in modern history in both the United States and Canada and internationally, where millions upon millions of people have lost their jobs, where millions of people are being forced onto completely inadequate social assistance programs, and where millions of people face destitution, homelessness, bankruptcy, and yet the Dow Industrials are up 11% and have had their biggest gain in over 30 years. And, it really tells you that the bailouts that we are seeing are all about the billionaires, all about the corporate class, yet again. Just like in the wake of 2008, when the corporate criminals on Wall Street got away with it, and when, in the end, it was the rest of us, the rest of society that paid, when we, bailed out all the big corporations on the backs of working people. It's happening again. And it really speaks to the lack of a genuinely organized anti-capitalist kind of fight back and left in North America. The billionaires, if you're in any doubt about what the billionaire agenda is, what the corporate agenda is, what the agenda of the 1% is really all about, and what the bailouts that our governments are engaging in are all about. All you need to do is look, for example, at Elon Musk. Elon Musk, which bewilderingly is very popular among many progressives. He decided to go on Twitter and demand to free America now. And yet another one of his epic Twitter outbursts. The same guy who called a hero a pedophile, and who rants on and on about unions, has come out and basically said that we should be reopening the economy, joining the chorus of those who, quote unquote, think the cure is worse than the disease. But in reality, what they're really saying is that, they need workers back to make even more money. The bailouts have bailed them out for now. Stocks are up. A lot of money's been infused into the coffers of the corporations, but it's not enough. They want working people back on the assembly lines, working people, many of whom come from racialized and marginalized communities, back behind the cash registers, whether it's essential or not. And, truth be told, most things in the economy are not essential, not to our survival, at any rate. But they want workers back. And if some of those workers die, well, yeah, so be it. That is not really something that they're terribly concerned about, since the death of workers doesn't interfere with profits. In their estimation, workers can be replaced. Corporate profits, a lost quarter, that can't be replaced. It is all driven by tremendous greed. I think we've all seen, or probably many of us have seen, if you look around online enough, the memes that point out that the desire of the billionaire class to get everybody back to work shows that it's not the billionaires at all who create wealth. It's working people who create wealth. Without working people, without people working, the billionaires have nothing. And in the cases where they've been able to be deemed essential and have gone full speed ahead during the capitalist coronavirus crisis, industries such as Amazon, for example, what you've seen is that, Bezos has added billions of dollars to his already staggeringly immoral and vile heap of wealth that he's built off of the backs of working people. He added these billions of dollars by forcing people to work in cramped conditions under threat of firing if they speak up. Amazon did fire one person who organized and attempted to organize for better working conditions in the United States. They have threatened other workers. They have engaged in, to the point where actively strikes are being organized by Amazon workers and by other workers in the precarious sector of the economy who've been forced to work, who've been deemed essential, and yet are working in very dangerous conditions and under very dangerous circumstances due to the coronavirus. Many of them are getting sick. Many of them are dying. And yet, instead of further caution, instead of trying to collectively come to a situation where workers would be safer, where the safety of workers is genuinely respected, instead of that, we're seeing attempts to reopen the economy in places, even though, we really haven't gotten to the point where that's a safe thing to do. There are more and more calls to reopen the economy. They come from the top down. They come from the highest and most powerful corporations and CEOs and corporate boards. And they're all putting pressure on the elected politicians, who many of whom are really in the back pocket of big business. They're putting extreme pressure on them to reopen the economy, and yet where this has happened, for example, in Georgia, where the economy was reopened recently, it's been a fiasco. It's been a disaster. And yet, full steam ahead from other people as well. Quebec is already beginning to reopen aspects of the economy in ways that are clearly dangerous. We spoke about this in a previous podcast. You also, a previous dispatch, I should say, we also have other examples of jurisdictions starting to move ahead. Today in Ontario, Doug Ford seemed to take a more pro, quote-unquote, reopening stance. But it's very, very important for working people and for people broadly to understand that this is about reopening the economy on the backs of workers. This will not be an equal sort of opportunity danger setting. As the push to reopen the economy becomes greater and greater, it is workers who are going to pay the price. It is workers who are going to be in harm's way. And it is workers often in the lowest paid and the most marginalized sectors of the economy that are going to be on the quote-unquote front line, as they're calling it. Now we have, if further to any doubt about what the bailouts are all about, Trudeau has backed down on what appeared to be his original pledge to make sure that companies that operated, Canadian companies that operated in tax havens and had offshore tax accounts would not be allowed to get corporate bailout money. He said that once, and then today, he seems to have backed away from that. Yeah, this isn't surprising at all. I don't know why anyone would find this surprising. The Liberals and Trudeau, they've always been a Bay Street party, and the bailouts are Bay Street bailouts. They're about bailing out Bay Street. Everyone else can get a $2,000 a month, and apparently, to some National Post columnists, this seems like a huge handout of some kind. I'm not sure if John Iverson's tried to actually live on $2,000 a month in a city like Toronto, for example. But he can pontificate about quote-unquote lazy workers while writing a column for a newspaper that didn't make money for almost its entire existence and was simply a vanity project of Conrad Black. The irony of how these folks who have survived on the kind of either corporate welfare or bailouts or thanks to the willingness of wealthy people to have a little propaganda arm, that they want to subsidize, have the nerve to talk about other people getting handouts. The irony is pretty profound, although not unexpected and nothing new. But, Trudeau showed again what side he's on and what side the bailouts are on. When we just have to keep coming back to that. The bailouts are for the billionaires. They are for the corporations. They are for the CEOs. We are seeing this very clearly. And the push to reopen, the premature push to reopen sectors of the economy is being done to further make sure that it is the corporations, the CEOs, and ultimately the billionaires who end up profiting out of this whole situation, because that is what our governments perceive as being, in the economic interests of Bay Street, Wall Street, and of the ruling class. It's that simple. And we are on the eve of International Workers' Day. Never has it been clearer how important it is to organize for a fight back against not this or that aspect of the economic system we are living under, but the entire aspect. The coronavirus is a symptom. The coronavirus is a symptom of a broader malaise, of which, for which capitalism is actually responsible. Capitalism is the virus that is leading us into this terrible place right now. And we have to come out of the capitalist coronavirus somehow with a clearer picture of the necessity to build the kind of parties and movements and organizations that will actually fire back, that will actually push back in broad and deeper ways against the entire system. We have seen working people's organizations and unions in Canada and whatnot try to push for better conditions, better wages, and for some concessions under the present circumstances, and obviously that's a good thing. But the unions also got behind such things as the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which really, instead of giving money directly to working people, gives money to corporations to allegedly rehire their workers. It's a straight up corporate subsidy. And, predictably, we're also seeing how it could be used in ways that are profoundly anti-worker. After the emergency wage subsidy was brought in, Unifor figured out that it could be used to actually pay for scab labor. So you could actually use it to undermine the collective bargaining rights. Corporations could use it to undermine the collective bargaining rights of unionized workers. Once again, with a loophole like that, it's pretty clear that we're seeing something that's meant purely to bail out corporations. Workers are an afterthought. when our politicians and when the corporations say they want to get the economy going again, what they mean is they want to get the economy going again for the wealthy, for the corporations, for the corporate elite. And that's something we need to fight back against now. We need to fight back against it in the future. We need to fight back against it when the capitalist coronavirus crisis is over, and inevitably our politicians and the ruling class try to bring in deep austerity so that they can pay down the deficits that they've amassed fighting the coronavirus crisis. We have to be ready for what is coming, and we have to fight back against it. And hopefully, I hope everybody has a happy International Workers' Day as much as is possible under these trying circumstances, and that we keep focused on the need to fight capitalism, not just in its various symptoms or in its excesses, but in its totality. As a side note, I'd like to note that for the second time in the last month, Facebook has arbitrarily limited the left chapter on its platform, which is unfortunate, but we're not going to be stopped from getting our message out. And I wanted to take the opportunity of this to thank everybody for their continued support, for the readership on the blog that's grown so much over the last 5 years. And, I look forward to future dispatches and to working together to create a better society after this coronavirus crisis has ended. Happy International Workers' Day.